I've obviously got these tulips here, which you can see in one of the windows. I think you can see them. Perhaps, Lucy, you could spotlight the tulips again. Okay, so that's my subject. I don't know what the rest of you have got, and you'll just have to work with what you've got. Now, I mean the green. There are more than one green in this foliage. Obviously, because it's a three-dimensional form, there will be a light edge and then a darker bit as you go down inside the leaf. And then a sort of mid-tone. So I'm just going to mix a general green for now because I want to do an exercise and we're not actually painting any object at the moment. So I always think it's quite a good idea to try and mix up a reasonable amount, not a tiny amount, because if you mix up a tiny amount, you'll run out, and then it means you've got to remix a fresh colour. It'll never be exactly the same. So for Carol's sake and Frances's sake, although I know Carol probably already knows this, but you put some water into one of the spaces in your palette, and I would suggest maybe 3 or 4 full brush loads of water. So you have a big puddle of water in the middle there. Okay. Now, I've got 2 yellows on my palette. I've got this one here at the end, which is called Aureolin, which is the sort of lemony type one. And then I've got another one further up here, which is the Gamboge, which is the warmer yellow. Okay. I'm going to, I think, start with putting some of this Aureolin yellow. That's the light one. I'm going to put my water onto the colour until I mix it a little bit until the lump starts to get creamy. Now, I have said to the others, and maybe I just need to say it again, it's better to be generous with your squeeze of colour if you're using a tube. If you're using a block, then you just have to work a little bit harder at it. I put quite a good squeeze in here, and then I've added some water to it. So the pigment gets released into the actual water, and you end up with something that's like single cream. And I wouldn't move your brush around too much in it. It's just a case of gently stroking the colour at this point, and then transferring your brush over to the puddle and allowing the pigment in the brush to dissolve in the water. Now, I'm going to do this more than once because I can see even at this stage that that's quite a pale yellow. I'm going to add a bit more pigment from my Aureolin lump. Okay, so I've now got a strongish yellow there. All right. Has everybody got a pool of yellow?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Now, you don't want to waste any of the colour. So if you want to give your little brush a squeeze, often there's quite a lot of colour. If you've got a good brush like mine, there's quite a lot of colour left in the brush. And if I squeeze the hairs, it releases the water that's surplus back into that pool, and I don't waste it in the water jar. Now I'm going to add the blue to the yellow, so I need to wash my brush very thoroughly. Now I'm going to aim for a green. If I look at my colour wheel, oops, sorry. I'm going to aim for a green that's sort of a bit like this. And that is made with the Aureolin yellow, which is this lemon yellow, you can see it, and Prussian blue, which is this one at the end here. Okay, so be careful when you put your brush into your Prussian blue. First of all, add a little water to the lump. I'll just move mine up so you can see it. Okay, there's my little lump of Prussian blue, and I'm just going to put some water onto it and then allow that water to work with the lump of Prussian blue. So again, what you're aiming for is something like single cream. Now you don't need huge amounts of the Prussian blue. The Prussian blue is very strong, so I'm just stroking off the surplus for the moment until I see how much that's going to affect the yellow I've mixed up. So I'm now taking my brush and adding what's on my brush to the yellow, and you can see how just that one brush load of blue has immediately turned the yellow into green. Now it probably looks, you can't really see what the proper colour is, but from there, so I'm going to move my palette onto the table and I'm going to paint a little bit on the top of my board, so you can, on my paper, so you can see what the type of green I've mixed, and I'll look at it against my colour wheel. So now this sheet is going to have exercises on, so don't paint too much. Now when I put it down, already you can see, maybe, I hope, that it's not that dark, you know, and yet it looks very dark in the palette. And if I hold my wheel against it, you know, as I say, I was aiming for this green here, this one here, sorry, that one there. If anything, the green I've got on my paper is slightly lighter, so I obviously would need to add a touch more blue to get that to where I want it. So I'm going to be very careful this time. Just put the tip of my brush into the blue so I don't pick up too much, and add that to the green. It's like you can hardly see the difference, but I think what I'll do, we'll work with that one. Maybe I need a fraction more. Now it's a very chemical looking green at the moment. When I look at these leaves, they're not, it's not that, they're slightly softer. It looks like they've got, well, it looks like they've got some chalk or something in them. The leaves I'm talking about, not my paint. So just to knock that green back, just a fraction, and this is where you have to be extremely careful. I'm going to wash my brush, and I'm just going to put the very tip of it just into this vermilion, which is, you know what vermilion is like, it's that orangey red. Now you do need to be, I mean, it only needs a little whisker of red. You put too much, it'll go brown. That's probably enough what I put in there. You probably can't see the effect of it in the colour, but when I come to paint, hopefully it'll look a little softer than what I've got up here on the page. Okay, that's the first step. Can everybody get to that point before I move on? Now I've raised my board on a bit of a roll of masking tape, and I don't know if you can see it, but there's a slight river down the bottom there, and that tells me that I've got enough paint on my paper. Frequently, if you have to go back and refill, well, it just depends on, I suppose, on what you're painting, but it is a good idea to have more paint on your paper than you think you require. Ugh. And I'd like you all to make the same, more or less the same, well, don't have, yeah, nearly the same amount of colour. I'm going to choose orange because I've got, you know, these orange flowers here. I've actually got purple as well. The complement of green is this sort of pinky mauvey colour. And actually looking at my tulips, the red, the colours are harmonious with the green. It's interesting. I mean, they're not strictly complementary, but I don't think, I mean, it's like nature organises things so perfectly that, you know, the flower heads don't jar with the green of the foliage. So I'm just going to choose one of the colours of the flower head and I'm going to mix that. I mean, maybe I'll do this purple here. No, I won't. I'll stick with the red. Okay, I'm going to stick with my red. I've got 3 jars of water on my table, so I'm going to try and keep 1 jar for green and 1 jar for yellow and 1 jar for red, so that when I wash my brush, I don't always go back to the same water pot. And I'm going to repeat the process, but I'm going to do it away from the green. I'll show you now. I'm going to put clean water into another well. At least 4 brush loads of water. And then I'm going to go to the vermilion colour and work my brush into it just for a little bit. It's already a bit creamy because I used it earlier on. I've got enough red on my brush there that when I drop it into the water, already it creates a colour. Now it's not, I would like it a bit stronger than that, so I'm going back to the vermilion and I'm going to add another brush load in. So I've got a reasonably strong, well, I think it's a strong mixture of the vermilion colour. And again, like I did before, I'm going to squeeze my brush out in here. I'm going to move it off on my piece of paper because otherwise I'm going to end up with paint all over my page. Okay, I'm going to show you what this colour looks like. This is the vermilion mix, just straightforward vermilion. Well, I see probably the tulips have got a touch of yellow in. It's not just straight orange, but anyway, it'll be fine for now for that. A little bit of the ultramarine to it. Maybe a bit more. You know, I think we might even put some Prussian blue in actually. Let's try with a little bit more Prussian blue. Yeah, it's better. Right, I'm going to put this down. So I need to. Now the thing is that this colour in the palette, I think, is going to be, well, it might be too strong, but I'm going to try it out and see what it looks like. So that's the colour. Yeah, it's not bad, is it? Look.
Yes.
Not bad. I mean, it's, you know, it's, yeah. It probably could be a little bit paler, in which case you'd add more water to it. It's looking very dark at the moment, but remember the colours always look dark when they're wet. And when they dry, and if you've got your hair dryer nearby, which I have, I would dry it and just have a look at it and see what it's like when it's dry.
Okay.